or if another person on the other side has an agenda because they want to tax the rich more. And where I ended up landing, purely based on what I saw in my life with rich people around me and the decisions they started to make, is a lot of the most successful people that if I was Keir Starmer, I'd want to keep in this country, especially the ones that don't have the mortgage yet and the family, they are off.
They're off.
They are going. And then the stats came out, which I think recently said that about 10,000, they've had like an exodus of these people. And I know it's triggering for some people because they hate rich people and they just think that rich people should just, but if you are truly, I think, in the middle, you do come to understand to some degree that the backbone of our economy is entrepreneurship, small businesses. With AI and technology becoming an even greater part of our economy, there's a certain type of entrepreneur that's likely to build and succeed in AI that we really need to keep, and we are competing geographically with San Francisco, Dubai, Abu Dhabi.
We absolutely are. The other thing, people think that rich people are taking money out of the economy, and the opposite is happening. They're creating wealth that pumps into the economy, and they're creating it from figments of their imagination. They're building things that didn't exist that come into the economy as new wealth. If we were living, now mind you, that's not all millionaires. Some millionaires are horrible landlords who make their money by bullying people. If you live in certain locations, the only millionaires you've met are probably slum landlords or something like that. That's not who we're talking about. We're not talking about people who are rent seekers or people who kind of bully people around or any of that sort of stuff. We're talking about wealth creators, people who are coming up with new intellectual property and bringing it into the economy to create jobs and wealth and investments, and they make the world go round. One of the reasons we have wealth inequality is not what's being talked about. Wealth inequality is because of technology and technology adoption. So I want you to imagine that we've got two people who are racing each other in a marathon. One person is running, one person's on a bicycle. So they've got technology that they're leveraging. The person on the bicycle is going to be powering ahead effortlessly. And it's going to look like a very unfair thing. And you say, well, this person works just as hard as this person. Why are they getting ahead a lot faster? Because this one on the cycle is leveraging technology and this person is not leveraging technology. When we go through these great shifts, we actually get people who are stuck in the old system and people who are in the new system. Charles Dickens wrote about this in the early Industrial Revolution. There were all of these kids that were on the street, right? Oliver Twist. And there was this huge wealth inequality, as some people were industrialists and some people were still in the feudal system in the agricultural age. Some people's income was linked to capitalism, some people's income was linked to feudalism. So in the same way that was happening then, we're going to see a very similar Dickens. I mean, he had that famous book called The Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, was the opening line. We're going to have the same thing now. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, because we're going to have some people who are leveraging technology and they live a life of fun, freedom, fulfillment, financial success. And with some people who are stuck in the industrial age who sit there and say, I work as hard as I possibly can and I cannot get ahead. I'm falling behind year after year after year. And it's because we have two systems operating in parallel.
Okay, so the people that would counter you now, when you talk about, the idea that these individuals that are leaving are wealth creators, what is the counterpoint? That is, does make sense. There are some rich people I know that are hoarding a lot of stuff. I mean, they do create opportunities for the economy, but they're in a hoarding season of life, just kind of stacking it up. They're not really giving it to many people, and they're playing certain money games just to build wealth and not necessarily creating huge economic value.
So what we need is nuance, and we need the nuance to understand that there are poor people who are rent seekers, who are not productive, who are takers from the economy. There are rich people who are takers from the economy, and there are rich people who are phenomenal wealth creators who create opportunities around them. There are poor people who are phenomenally valuable to the economy. So if we were to just simply make no distinction by just simply the level of wealth or income, it doesn't distinguish between, let's say, a nurse who's on 30,000 and someone who's a drug dealer on 30,000. They're not. They might be economically the same. They're not the same types of people in the economy. So what we need to do is have some nuance and understand what is the behaviours that we want to incentivize, what is the behaviours that we want to avoid. We want to make it hard to simply stick all of your money in expensive assets and then rent them out. We want to tax that. And we want to make it easy to invest in new economy. We want to make it easy to bring down the prices of things. We want to make it easy for wealthy people to invest into startups. We want to make it easy for people to relocate here, and it's an attractive opportunity to build a business here and create jobs here. We've just stuck a 15% tax on top of employing people. So a lot of entrepreneurs have responded by outsourcing to remote workers. I know plenty of companies that are now hiring people in the Philippines and South Africa because it's 15%, but straight off the back, all things being equal, it's 15% cheaper to hire someone overseas than here. So the government is making the wrong moves. They're just doing the wrong thing. They're making it expensive to hire people here. They're making it expensive for talented people to live here and be here. So the economy is going to suffer until they get their head around the fact that we're a globally competitive economy. We have to be globally competitive, that we live in a digital world. It's just going to get worse and worse.
Is this in part because the way that the political system is set up is that the Prime Minister or the President has 4 years? So actually they're quite short term. Because I'm thinking of Keir Starmer. He's saying that he walked into this deficit and now it looks like he's scrambling around for the money. And the long-term play here would be, we need to change the schooling system so that in 15 years' time, we've got a lot of AI knowledge base in our economy.
It's not that. It's just that in the industrial age, we created institutions that were appropriate for the industrial age, and now they've run to the end, and now they're just outdated. Look at the name, the UK government. That means it's a geographical border. The London City Council means it's an M25, right, is the geography. The British, the UK economy. So anything that is defined by geography already misses the point. Straight off the bat, it misses the point. And the point is that we live in a world where you can sell to anyone in the world, you can hire anyone in the world, you can pay anyone in the world, you can build a brand effortlessly from your phone, you can live and work from anywhere, you can create companies super easily. Like all of those things, like the fundamental technology has shifted. So it's like saying, how do we change the Duke and Lord system and the serfdom system? It's like, well, that was for the agricultural age, that was the system that evolved. We're going to need a completely different system because we now have an industrialized economy. So unfortunately, we're going into a digital world, or we're in a digital world, and the entire government is set up for the industrial economy. National identity was a massive thing in the industrial age. National currency was a very big thing for the industrial age.
Do you think Trump's going to make good decisions?
He's certainly going to be a disruptor. He's going to be an accelerant. Whatever's happening, I think he's going to break things that we're going to break, and I think he's probably going to bring in some things that emerge as good things. I think we were definitely going in the wrong direction. We were becoming, governments of the world were becoming very authoritarian for a while there. They were really policing different, elements of our lives and speech and those sorts of things, and all of that's going to definitely swing back the other way. The pendulum has already swung back the other way. If you saw the Mark Zuckerberg announcement the other day.
Are you bullish on America?
Oh, America is definitely the most bullish place. Yeah.
So this goes back to something I said earlier in terms of if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to position myself where the opportunity is, where the capital is, where the mentality is.
Yeah, where is actually online. So the where is digital. You can go to Silicon Valley and you'll see some of the poorest people living next to some of the richest people. So it's not a geographical thing. It's a mindset. The mindset is digital versus analog, or digital versus geographical. So, but the biggest economy, the winner take all, is the US, right? Because the US is in a very unique position. They're energy independent, they're food independent, they've got massive natural geographical borders, so they don't have to police their neighbours, they don't have one friendly neighbour at the north called Canada and one neighbour they can work with called Mexico below. Contrast China, I think they've got 17 neighbours to manage. So the US has got clear runways, biggest economy in the world, most technology, most universities, all of that sort of stuff.
We take our time when it comes to hiring at Flowstory because I fundamentally believe the success of a business is directly linked to how good you are at hiring. And better hiring starts with smarter insights. LinkedIn, who's a sponsor of this podcast, has some of the strongest hiring data available to help you identify the best candidates for your business. Their platform will even pair you with those who match what you're looking for, which might lie outside of the job description and more in their unique skills and interests. Because These days, hiring isn't just about finding the most qualified person, but also finding the one whose experience, abilities, and interests align with your company's mission. And it goes beyond candidates who are applying for jobs too. In any given week, 171 million members who aren't actively seeking jobs are open to new opportunities. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn and start today by posting your job for free just by visiting linkedin.com/DOAC. So is there anything else that would be on the list of things that if you were a 21-year-old Daniel Priestley and you were in 2025, what are the fundamental moves you'd be making? I can guess a couple of things. You'd definitely be making content.
Yeah.
That's for sure. You'd be climbing the podcast pyramid
Yeah.
to build more and more leverage and reputation, etc. Are there any other big
big stuff? So the key is the big opportunity is build a personal brand next to an elegant business model. That's everything. If you build the personal brand, it doesn't have to be a massive personal brand. If you've got 5 to 50,000 followers within a high value niche, if you're seen as a key person of influence in a high value niche, that's enough of a personal brand to make 7 figures. If you've got an elegant business model, you can sell to anyone in the world, you can communicate your value to anyone in the world. That's some of the stuff with an elegant business model. So essentially those are the 2 pillars. If you're not financially successful or where you want to be at the moment, you want to look at building a personal brand and attaching that personal brand to the right business. Those are the 2 steps. So ultimately, if you said, if I was 21, I'm trying to build my personal brand, I'm trying to attach that brand to a great business. That's the key to capital, it's the key to talent, it's the key to customers. So it's that personal brand on a scalable business. You look at every single person who's succeeding right now, they're focused on just those 2 things.
Why don't people do it? When they hear you say all of that, why is it that they then don't do it? And those people agree. So they're sat at home now, they go, yeah, I get it, I believe it. The foundations you laid are perfect, makes sense, and they still don't.
I'll tell you why. Years ago, I went to Bali, and I saw this massive mountain on the horizon. And we decided that we were going to book a trip to climb it. And it's called Mount Agung. So they wake us up at midnight, and we get in a bus, and we have to go to the mountain at midnight and climb through the night, right? It's crazy. And so from 1 o'clock in the morning, all through the night, with a tiny little headlamp on, we're climbing, and we're scratching, and we're going up the side of the mountain. And finally we get up there about 6 a.m. and I'm I didn't even realize why we were climbing through the night. It hadn't even occurred to me, why would we be doing it like this? And then finally we get up the top, and I realize, this is why we're doing it at 6 a.m. because the sun comes up at 6 a.m. So we get to the top of the mountain, and the sun comes up, and it's glorious. The air is thin, it's crisp, it's just incredible, and it's cold, right, which is rare in Bali. And then the sun lights up Bali, and I can see all of Bali and all of the glimmering sea, and it was just beautiful. I'm standing there, and I'm just loving it, taking it in, and we put eggs in the hole, and the volcano steam cooks the eggs. And then I look onto the horizon, and there's this thing called Mount Ranjani. I say to the guide, what's that mountain over there? He goes, that's Mount Ranjani. I go, is that on the island of Bali? He goes, no, that's on a different island. I go, how do you get there? You've got to catch a ferry. How many days does it take? You've got to go for 3 days. How long does it take to climb? It takes about this much to climb. Is it higher or lower or blah, blah, blah? How much is it? Can I book through you? And he says, Mr. Daniel, you need to appreciate the mountain you're standing on right now. Puts his arm around me. You need to learn to appreciate the mountain you're already standing on. So when I was standing on that mountain, I could see everything but the mountain, right? I'm looking around the horizon, I'm seeing all this, I'm seeing the mountain and everything, but I couldn't see the mountain that I was already standing on because I was too close to it. So the biggest thing that people miss in today's world is that they're already standing on a mountain of value. They've already got so much value, but they're so distracted by the mountain on the horizon. They go, Stephen Bartlett, he's already so much further ahead. He creates podcasts, I could never do that, right? Or they go, I saw this person who's really good in my industry and they wrote a book and I could never write like that. Or, I don't know if I've got anything of value to share. Some people have floated a company for $1 billion and I've only just started, right? What am I going to share? And what they miss is that every single person, your story is relevant, your background is relevant, the people that you know is part of the mountain of value. Your relatability is part of the mountain of value. You're losing your relatability because as you go so high, people just starting out can't even comprehend how to get there. So someone in the middle is going to take the place that you previously occupied because they're more relatable. They're only 2 steps ahead, not 20 steps ahead. So every single person has this mountain of value. But the biggest thing at the moment is the distraction of all the other stuff. And you're so close to your own mountain value, you can't see it. So the first thing I love to do is just put my arm around people and say, please learn to appreciate the mountain you're already standing on.
It's so true. And so I was just talking to someone before you came in about my girlfriend. She's a practitioner, her studio, she's a studio and she was spending a lot of time talking about making Instagram videos again. And then like a year, 2 years passed, and she's like, she buys a camera, buys another camera, etc. As we all do. And I realised that eventually the reason why she wasn't starting is she was so, I think, a little bit too focused on how it might perform. That first video she dropped, that she never dropped the video. And I was reading a book over Christmas break. I think it was The Courage to Be Disliked, and it talks about the possibility gap, something like the possibility gap, where it's the gap when you announce your intention and before you do it. And you can live in this gap because there's been no evidence to prove you can't yet. There's been no evidence to prove that you're actually not good at violin, or you're not good at DJing. So you can live in this gap for a long time. It's like the realm of possibility. Yeah. You've announced it, people are now giving you credit for it, and there's been no evidence to prove you can't do it. And one of the things that actually got her posting over Christmas was when I said to her, instead of like trying to make good videos, let's make the objective, get to video 1,000. She's posted every day since. She's posted 30 odd videos on her Instagram since then.
Changed the goal.
The minute the goal became, let's get to video 1,000, she was off to the races.
The other thing that happens is in an exponential world, in an exponential curve, every double eclipses everything that came before. And when you go through a doubling speed, you're doubling and doubling and doubling. Each double is worth everything before. So imagine this. You put 1 grain of rice on the chessboard, then 2, then 4, then 8. 8 is bigger than 7 that came before. Then 16, which is bigger than 15 that came before that. Right? And it goes like this. So every double eclipses everything that came before. So in an exponential world, just those first 1,000 videos you might only get 10,000 followers. Right? It might be small, but then you get a breakthrough, and then in that breakthrough, you get more than 10,000 followers from that breakthrough. But it was all of that that led to that.
That's exactly what happened to me. Almost to the number.
And to me.
The really important part there for me as well is just to go for 10 years at anything, you are going to need to really love the fucking thing. And so as much as we talk about strategies and tactics and like this and all these things, the overarching thing of how do we get to consistency so we can start to compound is a consequence of love and passion
and repetition. This is what we're talking about, repetition. How many times has Adele sung Set Fire to the Rain? How many times has Ed Sheeran done Castle on the Hill? How many times have Metallica done Master of Puppets? So, like, all of the greatest that you admire, they all do repetition, and it's perfect reps. They do it over and over and over again. No one's talking about this. Some of the biggest, most successful businesses, WD-40. WD-40 was the 40th attempt to create a spray that would do that thing that WD-40 does. And then for the last 50 years, they've just been selling WD-40. It's their one product, and they just sell it in a small can or a big can. Tabasco sauce. It's a 150-year-old business, and they just sell Tabasco, but every house in the world has Tabasco sauce. Fender Stratocaster guitars. They figured it out in 1950s, and they have made that same guitar ever since. Porsche 911, they've barely changed it, but Porsche 911 is the most successful sports car because they just get good at doing Porsche 911s. I love Swiss Army knives, Rolex watches. They are all businesses where they figure out what to do and then they just fall in love with the repetitions. They just do it and do it and do it and do it. And you've done 400 episodes of the show, I think, and first 100. So you've done 421 episodes of the show. I would almost guess that the last 21 probably eclipse the first 100,
to
say the least, right? In fact, when I was on the show last time, we just crossed 5 million subscribers. I think you're coming up on 10 million.
Yeah, we did 5,000 in December.
So this is called doubling speed,
yeah,
right? You're doubling and doubling and doubling. What will blow your mind is that you'll go from 10 million to 20 million in the year ahead. So it feels, because that's exponential growth. what if you continue to do the reps, you will cross 10 million, and in the same speed that you went from 5 to 10, you'll go from 10 to 20. You'll have 20 million subscribers to the channel if you continue to do the reps. So when we crank the handle, we go through dumplings, and you want to figure out what is the activity that leads to exponential growth, and just do it again, and fall in love with doing it.
It's really that simple.
If you're playing the right game, it is. I analysed your episodes, by the way. Of your last 117 episodes, what percentage were authors?
I'm going to say it's a high percentage.
It's very high, 78%.
Okay.
91 out of 117 are authors. They've all written books. What's interesting is the ones who haven't written books are typically like superstars and like mega stars in some other thing. But almost all of the guests have written at least one book. But 78% of your guests
Oh my god.
writing a book is a good idea.
It is a good idea. And it's a good idea for the unobvious reasons. Most people don't think it's not necessarily to sell books, because I've got a book that sold pretty well, but I don't think it's gonna. I don't necessarily think it's made much money.
No, it's relationships on steroids. It is the ability to have a relation. It's a parasocial relationship. It's the ability to have a relationship with an anonymous person on the other side of the planet, where they clock up 7 hours with you. You're literally what was once inside your head word for word is now inside their head word for word. So you actually connect at a very deep level with people at scale. So authors, becoming an author, one thing that I recommend to all the listeners is have a goal to become an author.
Even if you haven't done anything.
Well, you can document your journey. You can discover that you are standing on a mountain of value. A lot of people think they've not done anything. I've had people who've written really successful businesses about the passion that they have and the vision that they have. Really successful books about the passion and vision that they have. I have people I've got someone who was very successful at selling, as a small business, selling a corporate contract. And they wrote a book about how small businesses can sell to corporates. And that was based on maybe 8 to 10 major contracts that they'd won. But then they documented the process. And now they have a whole business teaching small businesses to sell to corporates. So if you've done one little thing, that could actually be a massive business bigger than one of our guys, Howard Tinker. He ran a successful restaurant, and he had a successful process for building his restaurant. Regulars and people who, locals who come back and back. And he actually wrote a book, it's an Australian term, he says more bums on seats. In America it would have to be more butts on seats. But he wrote the book called More Bums on Seats, gave it out to 1,000 restaurants and said, here's how I built my restaurant. And then ended up building a massive coaching and consulting business, teaching restaurants how to do their sales and marketing. So he had one little restaurant, and then he turned it into a big thing. Gabriella, who I mentioned before, she helped some couples get pregnant through her fertility interventions, and then she wrote a book called Fertility Breakthrough, and now she gives away 4,000 copies a year, and her business is massive.
On that point of sales, are there any frameworks for sales that you advise or give to entrepreneurs when they're trying? Because on stage a lot of people ask me this. They say things like this: I'm trying to sell to a customer, or I'm trying to sell to the CEO of this company some idea that I have to change the company, or I'm trying to sell downwards as a leader.
Yeah.
Is there a framework for selling?
Well, you want to productize your sales, and what you want to do is productize the demo and the customer needs analysis and give it a name so that it feels like a product, and that it doesn't feel like a sale, it feels like a product, so that you feel that you're getting something of value by seeing the demo and doing the customer needs analysis. That's one of the first things.
So break that down for me. So when you say the word demo.
So the demo is explaining the value of what you do.
Yeah.
So you want to craft a demo. Crafting a demo is like you want to be able to do the features, advantages, benefits, the research that backs it up. You want to be able to show some data. You want to have an emotional story that tells people how this product works and how it changed someone's life, how it delivered a valuable outcome. So all of that's in the demo, and the demo shows how your product is the path of least resistance between the current reality, the desired reality, and the obstacles that a ideal customer has. So you take an ideal customer, this is where they are, this is where they want to be, this is what's stopping them. Look at our path of least resistance that we've created. But it's not for everybody. You have to do a customer needs analysis, so a little survey and assessment, and then that tells you whether you need this product or not. So you want to productize that. You want to give it a name, and you want to give it a landing page, and people can sign up to it, so they can experience the presentation and do the customer needs analysis.
I've got a picture here with a messy middle.
Yeah, the Google report.
I've actually never seen this before, this image.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me, I'll put it on the screen and link it below for anyone that wants to look at it, I highly recommend you do, what this image is.
Yeah, so we used to think of marketing as marketing funnels. And marketing funnels, essentially, we would push people through a marketing process from awareness to consideration through to trust and commitment and purchase. So it was this marketing funnel, and we're just kind of funneling them through. And that's how we, almost all marketers draw funnels. And then Google did some research to see, is this actually true? Is this still how people buy? And they found it's actually not how people buy at all anymore. Top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel has been replaced by a trigger, a totally random journey through a playground where we explore and evaluate randomly, and then a trigger for signaling intent, and then purchase over here. So what this might look like is I might see an influencer talking about her handbag, and I go, oh, I'm interested in that brand, I'll give them a follow, and then I ignore them. And then I discover that they've actually put some videos on YouTube, and I start watching a video on YouTube, but then I go and do something else. And then I see a review website, and I go on the review website. Then I find out that brand has actually created a waiting list for a new product. So I actually say, oh, I might drive the waiting list. Now I'm ending up down here. And then I get on the waiting list. They tell me that they're only releasing 500 of that product. Would I like one? Yes, I would. So then I basically purchase. So it's no longer a funnel experience, because customers have figured out that they can disappear within 3 seconds if they want to. Right? They can just jump the fence, and the funnel feels dehumanizing for most people. So they don't like to be funneled. They like to go on an adventure. Rather than thinking about marketing as a funnel, we want to think about it as an adventure or a playground. So we're going to create things that people can interact with and play with. So they could watch a video, they could listen to a podcast, they could take an online assessment, they could complete a customer needs analysis, they could watch a demo, they could get free access to a trial in a portal, they could join a community, they could join a discussion group, right? So these are all things that people can engage with or play with, and we want it to avoid feeling like a funnel. We want to feel like it's lots of value, lots of great experiences, and then at a certain time there are moments to act if you want to buy something. If you're the right person at the right time, this is the moment to act. So it's a bit of a different way of thinking about marketing, but it acknowledges the fact that we're living in a very different world where funnels worked when people were afraid of not seeing you ever again, or that they're afraid that they would miss out. No one's afraid of that anymore.
The people that came to you following your our last conversation and that sent you messages and DMs, what is the most frequently occurring question that they asked you?
How do I start when I don't have a brand? Like a lot of people say, I've got a big idea or I want to launch, but I don't have a brand yet. I'm invisible. I feel invisible, and that makes me feel stuck. And essentially, they know what they're excited about. They know what they're passionate about. I've got a big new product idea. I've got a way of expanding into new territory, but I don't have the brand.
And is that where your 5 Ps come in? Like becoming a key personal influence?
So the 5 Ps is we have to learn to pitch, right? The entrepreneur journey is a journey of 1,000 pitches. One way or another, you're either going to pitch an average pitch and end up with nothing, or you pitch a phenomenal pitch and end up with a 10 times $1 million business. If you're Elon Musk, you end up pitching your way to Mars, right? But the entrepreneur journey is all about pitching. So we've got to have a great way of pitching the business so people are excited.
In person or digitally?
Could be video, right? I've seen Mark Zuckerberg do hundreds of pitches over the last 20 years for Facebook and new features. Steve Jobs used to do it on stage, and then the video went out. So you can do it to video, you can do it to camera, you can do it on a podcast, you can do it live, you can do it one-to-one, you can do it to groups, but you have to learn how to be able to pitch an idea, get people excited about something through your words. Entrepreneurs and founders, they are the spokesperson for their business. They have to be able to be good at pitching. The second thing is publishing content, publishing videos, publishing podcasts, publishing a book, publishing on LinkedIn, right? So it's essentially taking the elements of the pitch, putting into different formats. 7-Eleven for stuff. The third element is the productization, the product ecosystem. Too many people sell time and skills. They have to sell intellectual property, media, data, software, or productized services. They have to have a scalable product, something that doesn't require their time and effort in order to sell it again and again. Because your time and effort as a founder has to be on the demand side, not the supply side. So you've got to productize. Raising profile is the next one. So having your social media platforms, doing some live events, winning some awards, getting on traditional media or third-party platforms, all of that is your profile. And then the next one, once you've done all of that, is doing your first joint ventures and partnerships. So big business happens when you can find the right partners. So you might need a capital partner for investment, or you might need a distribution partner for sales. You might need a product partner, someone who actually partners and incorporate something that they do into your product, so you're packaging up through partnerships. So I always focus people on pitching, publishing, product profile, partnerships. That's the role of the founder. We call that the key person of influence role. Personal brand feels like this weird thing, or it feels like branding, or it feels like this kind of like, I've got to, get up every day and photograph my breakfast and, all that sort of stuff. But actually, if we just focus on pitch, publish, product, profile, partnership, most people, the sensible people with successful businesses, they say, oh, that makes sense. I like it.
Yeah, personal branding has got a bit of a rap, hasn't it? A bit of a stigma.
The goal is not to be an influencer, to be a key person of influence, and there's a difference.
And I think there's different types of personal branding, and the best, most effective type of personal branding that I've seen is what I call idea promotion, where you're promoting your ideas to the world, maybe in a particular niche or industry, but it's all about, here are my ideas, and you can do that as well, obviously through books and through podcast appearances and stuff. But there are other types of promotion. So some people do efficiency promotion. Here are all the ways that I'm flawed, and they build a brand around that.
Well, the one people most object to is self-promotion.
Self-promotion, which is, here's how great I am.
Look at me, this is my lifestyle, this is my car, this is my abs.
Yeah.
Here's my dinner, here's my girlfriend, my boyfriend, right? So all of that sort of stuff is self-promotion. That's narcissistic. And that's associated more with an influencer. A key person of influence is operating within a high-value niche, and they're idea promoting. They're saying, here's the big insights that you need. Here's the data that you should pay attention to. Here's the problem as I see it, and here's some nuances around the problem. Here's the solution or outcome that's achievable, and here's how you get to that outcome. So they're basically, it's part thought leader, but also part entrepreneur. You don't need a huge following for this. Influencers notoriously can't sell stuff. Many influencers have 1 million followers, and it turns out they can't sell hoodies. Very, very difficult to get anything sold. People look at them as entertainers, but they don't really look at them as thought leaders or someone who's directing serious spend. A key person of influence might have 5,000 or 10,000 followers, but when they say this is the thing to buy, everyone buys it. So that's what we're going for that.
And can anyone do it?
Anyone can start. I mean, I've been working on this for 15 years with 5,500 companies. We've got single mums with children who have special needs, who've gone from struggling to multi-million businesses. We've got people who have been stuck at 5 people for 10 years, and then they go to 50 people. We've got people in 50 different industries, from real estate to dentistry to medicine to IT services. So, the world is open at the moment. Every single industry has 1,000 different micro niches. Every micro niche needs a key person of influence or two. Every micro niche can have a book. When we were stuck in geography, there was no point to doing all of this because you only had a 5-mile radius or 10-mile radius anyway. Now we can reach 1.5 billion English speakers online. We can reach 70% of the world on fast internet. Your tiny little micro niche could be extremely valuable to 35 people